What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the show, we've got an amazing guest. He is the founder of realestateinvestor.com, co-host of the podcast show, The Real Estate Investor Huddle. He's helped hundreds of agents adopt this hybrid agent model, which is highly interesting, especially in today's market. Welcome back to the show for a second time, Gary Boomershine. All right, welcome to the show, Gary. How are you doing today?
I am awesome, man. Great to be on here again. It's been a couple of years, and lots has happened over the last couple of years. We got COVID and a totally different market, and yeah, I'm super excited to be with you and all your loyal listeners.
Yeah, I had you on. I was just looking at the notes. Actually, it's episode 84, and we're now at like 200 and something. So that was it went live back in November of 2019. So we probably did the interview like in September of that year. So it has been a wild couple of years, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back and listen. For everybody kind of knows me as on the real estate investor side, particularly kind of the Peter Schiff, probably a little bit more divergent. Real estate, I think I probably did this on your show 2 years ago, but real estate has been a 7-year cycle for 100 years, almost to the day. And it just happens that this particular cycle, we're at year 13. And a lot of people think this is the new normal. I don't. I think that we're seeing a euphoric stage of real estate. We're seeing when there's the old, been doing this for almost my whole life. I was a licensed agent when I turned 18 in 1987. And I remember my parents had a brokerage, and there were times where they'd have open houses and nobody would even come except the neighbors. And that was back in the 70s. And so, real estate's been a 7-year cycle. I think that if we look, we have a fiat money system, right? The Federal Reserve. And so it's not just natural supply and demand. What I said on that show, I believe, is that it's always been a boogeyman event. We look back to all the cycle changes. And by the way, I just call it boogeyman, meaning some external event, and like 9/11 and 2008 mortgage collapse, the oil embargo, and all these different things. If we track back 100 years, and so we now know what this particular one is. It's called COVID, right? The new acronym. So, I think this is an opportunity. I think we're going to go through one of the biggest transfers of wealth in probably our entire history, anybody living. And I think those that are preparing for this, I think, are going to do very well. And those that don't, especially on the real estate investor side, could be substantially harmed. So anyway.
What kind of transfer do you think is going to happen? Like who will benefit, and what steps do you take now to become one of those people that will benefit?
Yeah, if we look, again, I don't have any crystal ball. I just use history as a great gauge to the future and a lot of the trends. And so historically, what we've seen is that this is an absolute seller's market, right? Properties everywhere. I'm up here and I unloaded everything. I've unloaded pretty much my whole portfolio. I'm mostly in first position mortgages and then some really good rental portfolios. But I think we're going to probably see a pretty substantial supply of foreclosures again. And that's historically always happened. As soon as the musical chairs and the money printing stops, which has to, there's going to be a point in time then, and the system kind of comes crashing down. There's a artificial supply that actually hits the market. So more supply, that will be a shift. And a lot of people, especially people that are probably speculating right now. I think a lot of real estate investors are still speculating that the market's never going to end. And so the other thing that happens is a lot of money starts to disappear. Like the money available right now for real estate is insane, right? You got BlackRock in the game. There's trillions of dollars.
They're buying like whole subdivisions now, right?
And right.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see the middle class shrink. We're probably going to see in some of the markets, we're going to probably see a pretty substantial, relative, whatever that is, hit on the, drop of housing prices for a period of time, and then followed by massive inflation. And so those people that can sustain over probably historically it's been 12 to 18 months, and they can sustain, and we can talk about that, will do fine. Those people then followed by massive inflation. So I think holding physical assets.
Yeah, how does that happen? How does prices go down and then massive inflation? To me, that's like two different opposites. But maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong here. But can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a supply and demand thing. If we look at what happened in 2007, 2008, there was massive buying. Everybody was buying. Housing prices were going up. And even there's an old story, if your barber or the beautician or, the bank teller is talking about real estate, you probably know that we're sort of in the peak. And so when the supply hits and all of a sudden there's more supply, right? I'm in California right now. Typically there's no inventory. I'm in an area, even, I'm about 3 hours outside of San Francisco up in the foothills, but the supply, there's nothing available. And so everything is still going over asking multiple offers. So when the supply starts to hit the market, right, and you don't actually have the demand on the buyer side, that's what happens on decreasing of prices. And so I think that's going to happen, followed by massive inflation. You can't print the type of money that we're printing right now and will the
inflation cause the prices to then go up, or will it inflate other things but not houses, or is it kind of like a crash followed by everything goes up, or
everything goes up historically? I mean, we're already seeing it, right?
So people who are in weak positions or can't cover their mortgage, maybe they've got one exit strategy, and that's someone else pays more a year from now. If that doesn't work, and are you thinking like those kind of people get wiped out, lose their homes? Yeah. Savvy investors come in, and then prices like skyrocket.
Yeah. Here's the thing: when people can't make their mortgage right now, you got printing. Like almost everywhere, it's almost impossible to find, people like at restaurants as an example, because people are getting free money, right? They're paid more money from the Disaster Act, the CARE Act, and the PPE than they're making on working, right? When that runs out, those people can't pay for rent. What happens, they actually stop making their rental payments. Well, people that, still have mortgages on those properties, there's a point in time where they're not going to be able to make the mortgage, especially if they can't sell the house. So that just becomes a natural move of the market going back to on market, typically foreclosure auctions and bank REOs and HUD properties. And so when we see that, right, that is the supply. So I think, again, just from my own perspective, that we're going to probably see that here within 12 months. And there's going to be a cycle that, they call it black swans. The black swan is something, for most people on this call probably have heard this before. The black swan is something so obvious, but only after it happened, right? And you look back, it's like, oh my gosh, this was so obvious. And we have so many different black swans going on right now. And so I think those people that are actually recognizing that can either sustain or they're getting prepared. So like what I'm coaching on the real estate investor side, and I know I'm in a lot of masterminds and with a lot of smarter people than me, and a lot of us are having this discussion of what I call the 3 Ps. It's protect, pivot, and then profit, and balancing the portfolio. So I'm getting more into a cash position, and you can't totally time the perfect timing of the market, but you can within 18 months. And by the way, I was calling the same thing back in 2006. I was on the foreclosure. I was buying foreclosure properties. And so I started calling foul, and I was early, right? The market continued to go ridiculously skyrocketing. But then, of course, we know what happened at the end of 2008. And even the Federal Reserve, if we remember, before all the banks collapsed, the Federal Reserve, I think it was Greenspan and Bernanke, came out and said, oh, there's no problem with the subprime market. Everything's great. There's no problem. And then, literally like 9 weeks later, a complete implosion, right? Almost took the banking, it did. It took the banking industry down to nothing.
Hey, hold that thought for a minute. Do you want to take your real estate business to the next level? If you do, there's no reason to go it alone. Learn from people who've been where you want to go. Carrie and I have sold billions of dollars in real estate. We've netted over 7 figures for 7 years in a row now, and we want to see if you would be a good fit to work for us. We don't work with a lot of people, but we want to give you a chance to get on a free strategy call to see if we can help you get your business to the next level. Go to hyperfastcoach.com and apply for your discovery session today. Again, that's hyperfastcoach.com.
Yeah, it's just hard to nowadays, especially, and it's gotten worse since then. It's like who do you really trust anymore from an authority, a media? Like I don't know what the answer is to that. I think someone in the Fed, and I don't know who's in charge or any of that really, but I think someone recently said that inflation doesn't matter anymore, right? Didn't the chairman of the Fed say that?
Yeah. By the way, our air conditioning, I'm up and it's 105 out. And so if you see me sweating, it's because the air conditioner went out like 4 hours ago. It's super hot. We're having like a massive heat wave. I'm up about 45 minutes from Yosemite National Park that we moved up to. Here's the thing. Before COVID, and this was going to be March, it might have even been, it was March of this year, March of 2020, last year, that the United States couldn't even pay its own debt, the interest on its debt. And now we've increased the money supply, right, by almost 40%. So if we look at what a dollar was 100 years ago, $1 is worth the equivalent of 4 cents today.
Jeez.
So inflation is a slow creep, and we're seeing it. So a lot of people are like, we're not seeing inflation. It's like, go look at the cost of lumber. Go look at gas prices. Go look at any commodities. So, it's just the way of the world from my perspective. It's all good. It's like, how do we survive and how do we thrive, right? And actually take advantage of it, because we could be irritated and, thinking of the Federal Reserve and the banksters, that this is in the media and all this stuff that's going on. I'm more of like, hey, what do you do and how do you take advantage of it? And so I think there's going to be huge opportunities to buy properties at the auction again, which are going to be foreclosures and REOs that we're going to have an opportunity to, followed by massive inflation, where I could see a property that's worth $300,000 being worth $3 million in 10 years. And I think that most of us that are preparing should make sure that we're getting into physical assets. Again, I like real estate.
So in a 5 to 10 year outlook, you might say housing is cheap right now, but in a 1 to 2 year outlook, you might say they're overpriced.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people, I had a young man, we've been, I would say 25% of our client base with realestateinvestor.com are what are called hybrid agents. These are the hybrid agents that are, coming in or seeing what's happening with BlackRock buying entire neighborhoods and seeing the iBuyers come in and shrink their profits. So they're coming in with the idea of, hey, I want to buy property or be able to offer seller, an all cash offer as well as list the properties. And so I was actually speaking at Jeff Cohn, you know Jeff.
Yeah.
So out of Omaha, I was speaking to his audience just about 6 weeks ago, and I was a young guy there in his 30s. Anybody that's younger than me now, I guess, is young. And he came to me and he said, "Gosh, Gary, I want to tell you the advice that you gave me last year has been some of the most amazing advice ever. And I remembered him, but I didn't remember the advice. And he showed me that he was a hybrid agent, that he had been doing listings, but he also acquired, I think he showed me 16 properties, 16 houses that he had bought, and said, what would you do knowing where the market's going? And I said, you know what I would do? And I looked at his portfolio and I said, I would sell these and I would take the equity and get a couple of free and clear properties. And so he told me that, he said, hey, I wanted to show you, I now have 9 free and clear houses, and also got really clear on my why. He goes, my wife and I, we have more free time than we ever had, and we got more passive income now. We're not just like doing listings and working a job. I call that just over broke. And so that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. It's getting super clear and just, protecting what you got, pivoting, and then profiting.
What is the hybrid agent for people that maybe haven't heard that, and what are the reasons you'd want to consider that model?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was either. Actually, it came a couple 3 years ago. I was actually invited to a conference, RATE, which is the radio and TV experts, Matt Wagner, and I was invited to come attend their event in New York. And it was funny because we were there, we had a booth, realestateinvestor.com. Of course, these are all agents. And it wasn't until the third day that we were absolutely swamped. One of the guys got up who was a #1 agent team in Hawaii, Team Lolly, came and said that Real Estate Investor was their secret weapon, that we were finding off-market deals that were not even competitive in their own market. And what realestateinvestor.com is we're typically finding deal flow direct to the seller, right? By doing direct mail and a large phone team that's focused on finding properties where most of the sellers, they're inherited properties. They've probably been burned out landlords, and huge market. In fact, there's 18 million of them on our proprietary list that we market for. But they basically, these are typically investors. We've been focused as a company on investors, people that are just buying the houses, typically fixing them up and then putting them into our rental portfolio or flipping them for a profit. And so this company basically said, these guys are finding deals and we're buying some of them, but 80% of their leads are still listings. So a hybrid agent is somebody that is not just looking to do transaction, a job, a transaction, right? A one-time, like I do a listing, I do some work, and then I get paid. They are coming in and saying, hey, for every 10 listings, I want to buy 1 property. And so they'll come in to a seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I can offer you a solution. If you'd like, I can offer you an all-cash offer right now. You don't even have to list the house. And here's what you would get price-wise. And then if you wanted to list the house with me, here's what I think that you would net. And then if you actually did the repairs and wanted to get full price retail after repaired value, then I think I could get you this after, the repairs. And so these agents are coming in as hybrid, and they're massive competitive advantage, right? They're, you go and you're doing a CMA, you're meeting, you go meet with a homeowner and they've got 10 other agents there competing on the same sort of principles. And so these hybrid agents are coming in with more solutions for the seller. And that gives them a competitive advantage against the common agent, but also against Zillow and Open Door and OfferPad, et cetera. So that's a hybrid agent. It's a fairly growing market for a lot of these.
So the pitch is basically like, hey, Mrs. Seller, I can, if you want a fast sale, guaranteed, all that, here's what I can, do for you. If you want to maximize, and it won't be the highest amount of dollars in your pocket. If you want the highest amount of dollars in your pocket, here are the things you need to do, the work that needs to be done, and then we list it, and this is how much we get. So you're presenting more options to the seller.
Exactly, and allowing the seller. It's basically classic solution sales, right? Which is pretty much our business. Build a relationship, establish trust, and then come up with a solution to what the seller wants. for them. And so that's and there's a lot of newer hybrid agents. They want to get into the game, but they'll still do the same thing. But they may have an investor, a real estate investor, all cash buyer on the side. They may have 3 or 4, and so they're working with the cash buyer, and so they can come into the seller and say, "Gosh, Mr. Seller, I already have a buyer that's willing to buy your property right now, close in 17, 21 days, all cash, no repairs, no nothing for this price. Let's say it's $300,000. If you listed it after commissions, we think that you might get $320 or $330. And then if you did the $40,000 worth of repairs and fixed the bathrooms and all the floor coverings and painted it, we think that you could probably net, $350, right? Something like that." So that's the hybrid agent.
What does the hybrid agent do to market themselves? How do they find sellers that might be interested in this?
Yeah. Well, they use a company like realestateinvestor.com, because most of these hybrid agents are realizing that, they're already farming, they're already doing the standard referral business, and they've already got that mastered. And then they use a company like us. We don't market for listings. We typically market direct to the seller to buy the house. So it's typically a completely different world from real estate agents, right? Very little crossover. I was just looking at the statistics. There were 54% of all properties are not ready to go retail properties, right? A lot of properties, they need a lot of fix-ups, a lot of work. They're not, there's junk, there's garbage. And so typically for investors, we would be looking for those types of properties where the seller lives out of the area. Maybe they inherited the property. Maybe somebody was old and is now in a retirement community, right? And they're looking for, they don't want to hold open houses. They don't want to fly out and have to move mom and dad's stuff. They're really looking for how to get the best price with the least amount of work. That's typically who we've been marketing as real estate investors, which is a huge market, untapped by agents. And so now a hybrid agent is coming in saying, hey, now all of a sudden we have this entire market that we can now go after that most other agents aren't even looking at. And so we'll market for them with our company. We have software, and then we have done-for-you services. As an example, we've done over 85 million pieces of direct mail for a fairly small client base, thousands of clients. We've done over 6 million phone interactions with sellers to have a professional dialogue of, typically about 6 minutes to find out if the property is already listed with another agent and how's the condition of the property and what is their timing and things like that. So we put them through a qualification process, and then we pass that over to the hybrid agent or to the investor as the, so there's leads, and then there's the qualified opportunities. We typically are passing over both, but primarily qualified opportunities.
So when these hybrid agents get in touch with the sellers, the marketing is to buy the house. But from the numbers you stated earlier, it looks like 75-80% of them are often better off listing or choose that option that suits them better.
Yeah.
Is that kind of standard, like across the different markets you're in, that about that many people, even though they think they just want a cash offer, they're like, well, I'd like to list it and get a little bit more, or I'd like to do the work and get that much more even?
That's probably accurate. Here's the actual numbers that we've seen. Historically, what we've seen is about, and by the way, this hasn't even changed, even with the craziness of the market, about 45 leads. That's a seller who said, yes, I might be interested in selling my house and right now. And some people, 45 leads, those are also people that say, hey, I'm not interested, or don't ever call me again, or what have you. So about 45 leads typically turns into about one deal. So 45 to 1. And then the ratio is 45. Of the 45, about 1/3 of those are even qualified, right? The rest of them you keep building in your farm and through follow-up software and a inside sales team, which we provide for the long haul, because at some point they may not be ready today, but in a year or 2 years through rapport building and follow up, right? So what we found is for real estate investors that are buying typically with all cash, about 45 leads produces about 15 qualified opportunities, which about half are ready for an offer, and then 1 out of 7. Okay. What we're finding is that hybrid agents they've got great relationship skills and are doing this, for every 1 deal that they may buy, they're probably getting 1 to 2 listings. So, and that's why our market is growing. So typically investors are only looking for, junker properties that they can get on the cheap, that they can, create value add. And now hybrid agents are coming in saying, hey, I can get 1 of those, or they've got a cash buyer ready to go for that. And then they're getting 1 to 2 listings on top of it. So it's been pretty cool. What
do these agents typically do with the properties they buy? Do they flip them?
Do they hold them as rentals? Does it kind of vary?
Jeff Cohn is an example. So I'll use him. Eric Hatch out of it was number 1 in Fargo. Actually, I think he was number 43 for Keller for a long time in the country. But both of those have been long-term clients of ours. So Jeff, they did 700 listings, over 700 listings last year, and they bought 110 houses. So he's got his realtor team. And they were number 1 for Berkshire. I think he just moved over to Keller this last year. And so they did over 700 transactions, and then they bought 100 houses. And those 100 houses are ones that they will be holding for the long haul. Jeff's goal is to have 10,000 houses over the next handful of years. And I think he will. The guy's he inspires me. He's a super good guy. Eric Hatch doing the same thing. Eric has a large brokerage and number 1 in Fargo. I think they did over 600 transactions, maybe even more, but they're buying a fairly substantial amount in the Fargo area and now starting to reach out. And so we're seeing that kind of all over the country. So I always say, keep the best, sell the rest.
And then are they just putting long-term renters in most of these then? Okay.
Most of them. Yeah, most of them. And they're in better markets than, like, I'm in California, right? We have California, you can't cash flow properties like you can in Omaha, Nebraska, or Fargo, North Dakota. So those markets that they're in are markets that typically in a downturn have not been hit. Like 2008, those markets only went down 6%.
Right.
So unlike parts of California that dropped 60% in value, right? So they're typically putting long-term renters, and they're doing the fix-ups. My model is, I love Airbnb, so I'm looking for better product, and then I love the Airbnb model. So I'm looking for better
where
product.
are you doing Airbnbs?
California, Arizona, Florida, but I'm being extremely choosy right now, so I'm not taking on a lot right now, just in this current market.
Yeah, we've had success with those in Florida and in near Washington D.C. They seem to do really well in areas where on a long term the cap rate would be really, really low, but but good quality areas. But then as Airbnbs, like, we're getting like well into the double digits on cap rate, which is
it's insane. Yeah. We're flying back out Jacksonville, Florida. Like, I love Jacksonville. Jacksonville Beach, Atlantic Beach, that whole area is where we're kind of targeting. Again, I'm in California. We just sold. We unloaded a long-term Airbnb vacation rental that we had in Maui on the beach outside of Kaanapali, and so we're moving that right now because of the way COVID works over there. We decided that was a very interesting. That whole market shut down. So we, Jacksonville Beach, we're looking for like duplexes and triplexes within a block to 3 blocks from the beach over there. But we're being really selective. You know, like I said, keep the best, sell the rest. We're not speculative at all. You know, I think for anybody that's buying right now, I think it's a matter of like making sure that if the rent, you know, if your occupancy rate drops for a while, you can survive, because
Right.
operating capital is important. You got to still be able to make the payments if you got a problem.
Do you, when people go to like realestateinvestor.com or, you know, sign up to work with you, do you guys provide training on this model? Because like sales and lead generation, you know, all that real estate agents are pretty good at, but the typical agent is not actually good at investing or has a lot of experience doing that.
Hey, hold that thought for a minute. Are you a real estate agent in the DMV area or thinking about becoming a real estate agent in the DMV area? Why not join the highest selling team in the DMV? The Carrie Scholl team is hiring more agents. We have the best training systems, the best culture, and the best environment to get you to the next level, whether that's starting out and getting to 6 figures or getting from 6 figures to 250 or to $500,000 or even beyond. Go to carrieschollcareers.com. Again, that's carrieschollcareers.com.
She'll have a little editing on that.
Okay. Yeah. You
All right.
you cut out about as soon as we as soon as you started to answer the question on, you know, training agents to evaluate the deals or how do they know, you know, the right price to buy.
Yeah. So over the last couple of years, we have been able to service everybody from a fairly brand new real estate investor who's really just getting started but committed, all the way to the super experienced that are, you know, have multi-million-dollar full-time real estate businesses. So realestateinvestor.com, in terms of what it is that we do, we're really not a software company. We're a solution provider for real estate investors and hybrid agents, providing them deal flow, providing them the software in order to find that deal flow, and then the services that are completely turnkey done for them to actually do all the work like marketing and the follow-up to generate the qualified leads. And then on top of that, the training. So we got a ton of training. In fact, we've got certification programs. I have a solution selling, it's a sales course on interacting with sellers. What we found, a lot of agents are really good getting listings, but they have no idea how to have the conversation and dialogue with the seller on buying the property. And so I have an advanced course, plus a month of compression coaching that we're usually giving to our members. Super congruent for agents, but with how to actually present multiple offers, how to build the relationship, trust, and have that dialogue where somebody hasn't done it before. Agents have been fantastic. See, real estate investors typically have not had any professional sales training. Most investors are coming in and they're coming with no sales training, and they come in with these crappy offers to sellers, and then they wonder why they're not having success. Agents, on the other hand, have been trained. A lot of them, Gary Keller, you know, with building relationships. It's the same thing, but with a twist of how do you actually build a relationship, establish some trust, come up with a solution for the seller, and then how to make a multiple offer scenario. And sometimes you might buy the property, sometimes you may decide to wholesale it, or sometimes you may decide to take down the listing. And so we might either provide the training or we connect our members with the expert in our industry that actually is really, really good at it, our solution providers. So at the end of the day, you know, we just want to make a measurable difference that impacts lives, and it happens to be real estate as the widget. And so we've gotten really good at that. Done it for over a decade.
What are you training agents right now or recommending that they do to do the 3 things you recommended earlier, the protect, pivot, profit?
Well, I have a new book that's called The Freedom Code. I'd say one is, and I'm happy to give a free copy. It's in the final editing. I would be happy to give that out to all of your member base. It is a book. I think it's super crystal clear. A lot of people, they get stuck on the how, not the why or the what. At the end of the deal, after coaching people and even myself, most of us that get into real estate, we're looking for financial freedom and we're looking for a lifestyle of time. And a lot of people get sidetracked or lost creating a job, a job, just over broke. Agents do it too, right? A lot of it's all about transaction volume. I hear, oh, I did 400 transactions, I did 700 transactions, or I did $1 billion worth of revenue. It's like, okay, how much did you end up in your bank account? Because at the end of the day, it's how much you net and then how much passive income you have. So I think there's a trap. So I think it's when we work with somebody, it's getting crystal clear on the why for you. It's what do you want, and what do you want your life to look like, and then the what, because the what is, you want rental properties, you want apartments, right? You want to do 100 rehabs a year and a flipping business. And so we start with the why and the what before the how. The how is easy. How to flip a house, how to rehab a house. A lot of people get stuck in the muck, and I think it's just because we've been trained as slaves in the system, right? From a very young age, we've all been trained to be a cog for making somebody else wealthy, and so we basically get clear on that. And the second is, in real estate, there's three buckets of money, okay, and not just one. So there's cash now, there's cash flow, and there's cash later. And a lot of people are totally focused on the cash now, like real estate agents. It's a transaction, right? Cash now means you do some work, you get paid, a one-time fee. You stop working, the fees and the money stops coming in. So that's cash now, that's a job. Cash flow is typically through rental income and lending, right? Mailbox money. And then cash later is typically from appreciation and value, and then equity buildup. In fact, it was Warren Buffett that said a true real estate investor is somebody that has cash, they buy a physical asset that happens to be real estate, and then they own it for the long haul. And there's an acronym called IDEAL. So I think part of it for new agents is the mindset of getting crystal clear, because a lot of agents are very focused on running on the hamster wheel, just like investors are, and running really fast, and it's about getting crystal clear on your why and what it is that you want. And I also, people don't even realize there are only 7 houses from being completely financial free. 7 houses. A lot of people are focused on doing 100 deals a year. And I don't think, a lot of people, oh, I need to have $10 million in my bank account. No, at the end of the day, it's the passive income. Most of us don't even need that much. Passive income being mailbox money, right? It's a one-time exercise to get a lifetime of revenue. And so most of us who have 10 to 25,000 a month in passive income, we're financially free. So getting super clear on what that number is.
So how does 7 houses get you there?
Well, it's in my book. Actually, you could buy a $100,000 house, and I'm going to give it to everybody. You don't have to buy anything from me ever. But when I tell everybody, if you kept your job and you were just an agent, and over the next 7 years you bought 7 houses for $100,000, and you basically took those numbers, and I do all the math, and you actually took every single piece of profit and you paid those mortgages down from the rental income that you get, and you actually pay those down, you'll have 7 free and clear houses in 7 years. Now, it means you keep your job and you don't have to do anything else, but that's $1 million plus passive income that would typically make everybody a millionaire. Now, the problem is, if I ever got on stage and sold that model, nobody would buy it because everybody wants instant gratification. They want a push button, right? If they are overweight, this, you run marathons and everything else. Everybody wants to have instant gratification. No, it takes work, and you got to get clear on your why, and then you can go, the how is easy. So we do that with a lot of agents, which is, hey, you're already busy and you're already running your business. Let's talk about what it is that you're looking for. And so a lot of these agents might be, look, I want to actually have, out of all the work I'm doing, I'd like to have 5 rental properties by the end of the 12 months. And I want to have $3,000 or $4,000 in passive income. And I want to do that now with my existing business. That's what's interesting for hybrid agents. They're really not having to change anything that they're doing except their mindset. So we'll spend a lot of time with them on that. And then the how is easy. So for instance, a lot of people get stuck around, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Now I have to go do rehabs and I have to go do property management. It's like, no, you write a check for that. just like what we do, right? So it's a mindset thing. I would say the transition from being an agent into being a hybrid agent or a real estate investor is 90% mindset. We've heard it. The most expensive real estate in the country is between the 6 inches between our ears. All mindset.
All right. Well, this has been amazing, Gary. I know we've only got a few minutes left. I always like to wrap up with a HyperFast round. This will be your second time through if you're ready for some rapid fire questions and answers. All right. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate agent right now?
I'd get crystal clear on your personal vision. I would take the time and make sure you know exactly where you're heading. If you don't have a plan for your own life, I call it, if your mess is your message. And so, especially if you're going to be a CEO or an entrepreneur, you got to be super crystal clear on what it is that you want and what you want your life and then what you want your business to look like. And then you go. The rest of it's easy. A lot of people get stuck on figuring out, I just want to become an agent and go, run on the hamster wheel. That would be number one. Number two is get a really good professional coach. Nothing changed. I haven't invented any of this. It wasn't until after doing exactly and making all the mistakes and being a workaholic again, coming out of the corporate world, I finally got a coach and changed my life. That's number two. And then the third thing I would say is really be focused on the passive income. Everything is about the passive income. Everybody gets stuck on big bank account, number of transactions, and fairy dust.
All right. What's the biggest mistake you see established real estate agents making right now? So successful ones, established, but big mistake they make.
Same thing that probably every entrepreneur makes, and especially investors. And that is, if you're doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. You got to focus on the money-making activities, and you need to actually write a check. This whole business is leverage. So everybody gets in thinking, I'm going to do it myself first, and then I'm going to go hire somebody, and that's a complete trap. I think you do it day one. And what I will give everybody is tools on how to do that. You need to know the value of your time. So number of hours you want to work a week, and the net bank account that you want at the end of the year will give you your hourly rate. And if you're doing anything less than that dollar amount, like you want to make $500,000 in a year and you want to work 40-hour weeks, it's a $250 per hour is what your time is worth. You're doing anything less than that. So you outsource and bring in great people. This whole business, agents or investors or owning any business, is a finance game, and it's a leverage game. It's not just leveraging people's money, including your own, but also leveraging other people's time, experiences, and resources. So that would be, I would say, you've got to get leverage of other people. People is really the valuable. Your time is the most valuable asset, more than money, and the team or the people that you have is the second most valuable resource to get you. And that's the way all businesses in the entire world work.
All right, last one. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Yeah, my personal vision is, I've always looked at, I look at everything I do as a banker. So you got investors, and then you got bankers or lenders. And you look at around every street corner in every corner of the world, the biggest buildings are always the banks. So I see myself long-term, even on deals. Everything that I do is more coming in from a lending perspective. I'm always, bankers are always looking at the downside. Investors are always looking at the upside, and they're seen as speculators from banks. So lending and venture capital and investing in other people's projects and other people's businesses, where I can not only make a good return on my own money and the money that I raise, but also being able to come in and add value. So I get a lot of people coming with their projects and deal flow, and I see doing that over the next 10 years a lot more.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary. It's been amazing having you on for a second time, one of the few two-time guests. So we appreciate that. I know you mentioned the book. You mentioned realestateInvestor.com. What are some ways people can connect and get even more value from you? Because I know you're willing and able to provide that.
Yeah, if we can help in any way, we got a ton of training. I've been doing a podcast for years, including one of my business partners on real estate investing and hybrid agents. You can go out to realestateInvestor.com. I'll give you a phone number that you can text right now. I have a bunch of free tools, and actually you'll get a free copy of my book when it's released here in a handful of weeks. What you can do is just text this phone number and put HyperFast in the text, HyperFast in the text message. And the phone number that you can text right now would be 925-320-0575, 925-320-0575. I'm sure Dan will put it into the show notes. But if we can help in any way, again, if there's anything that we've able to provide you, our team is here for you. We're built to serve in everything that we do. And and if anything helps, love to hear feedback and what it did for you. And you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook and on our podcast. It's called Real Estate Investor Huddle.
All right. Well, check that out. Thank you so much, Gary, and to all of our listeners and viewers on YouTube and on iTunes. Thank you so much. Please share this with other people you know that would benefit from it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos.